trying to talk to you on a few issues that I imagine in the whole corridor of late transition. And it seems that you have actually triggered a little bit of a controversy yourself. And one is wondering, are you seeing a pattern emerging which is consistent with disruptions in late transition? Because you've spoken of, if I should characterize it, non-executive, non-elected bureaucrats who are trying to topple a civilian to civilian transition here. Is that the point you are really making?
Yes, it is the point I'm making to some extent. I will not even call them bureaucrats. I will call them totally non-state actors. If they had a title in the hierarchy of government, you can understand and hold them accountable. But these are people that prefer to be under the radar, but constantly plotting to preserve power on their own terms. And there is nothing wrong with that. But when the attitude is, unless we get our way, Nigeria should take the highway, we have to draw a line and stand up for the only country whose passport we hold. And that is really the issue. There were patterns of conduct that did not make sense to any rational person. And in spite of efforts at representing and inquiring and asking questions and trying to bring evidence of human suffering, evidence of anger and incitement of the electorate, evidence of likelihood of very high voter apathy, and no action is taken to correct the cause, one is compelled to start exploring conspiracy theories. And it turned out that some of the wildest stories we had of conspiracy theories to derail the transition, at best for APC to lose, preferably for the whole system to result in no election leading to an interim arrangement, began to rear their heads. And of course, at that point, some of us had to speak up. And I felt particularly a responsibility to speak up for a couple of reasons. First, I would say among the governors in Nigeria today, I'm perhaps one of the closest to President Buhari in terms of not only personal relationship, open shows of affection, but also years of collaborating in the political space, right from our days in opposition. Secondly, many of us believed in Buhari greatly, and we went out of our way to not only market him, but to convince everybody that he was the best thing for Nigeria at that point in time. And we have no regrets for that, because whatever may have been the failings of this administration, it is still a much better alternative than the direction President Jonathan was taking us. And I think that on the whole, the administration has done very well in many areas amidst major challenges. But still, those of us that stood up and got counted as Buharists also have a duty to ensure that his legacy is preserved, that he leaves office with his dignity intact and retires. And there are people around him that, in our view, did not give a damn about that, because for them, losing their power and privileges was everything, and nothing else mattered. Buhari's legacy did not matter. Nigeria did not matter if they didn't get their way, and we had to stand up for that, and we're in a position to do so as elected governors are representatives of the people of our states.
So that was a lot to take in at once, because you just said a lot of things. But I'm just going to take it bit by bit. So towards the end of your comments was the fact that you believed in Buhari.
Yeah.
And you believed in the past tense.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask, have you stopped believing in Buhari?
No, I still believe in him personally, but leadership is not about one individual. The choices that a leader makes, the team that he constitutes, becomes part and parcel of what you can say is his leadership. I've had the privilege of working closely with 3 presidents now, and I know how important the inner circle around the president or a governor or any leader for that matter, how important it is to make the right choices of those that are around you all the time, because those that are around you all the time have a disproportionate influence on your decisions and actions for the simple reason that they are there. This is true in every palace, in every kingdom from the beginning of time. So yes, I believe in Buhari, I still do, and I will never stop believing in him. But I no longer believe in the circle around him and the quality of decisions and actions coming out of that leadership. That's
Do you want
long and
to
short
go
of it.
one step further and characterize this element in a very distinct outline that people can then understand?
No, I've given a few examples in previous interviews I've had. I'll just mention one or two again. Let's take the fuel subsidy regime. The fuel subsidy regime was on its way to costing us about 2 trillion naira in 2021. And the moment, we began to sow that, because in the Nigerian Governors Forum, I lead a team of governors that interact with NNPC monthly to see, what's the oil production, what are the revenues, and so on. And what they call under recovery, which is the new name for subsidy, we saw it begin to rise. And we raised an alarm, we met with the president. He said, look, I have problems with removing subsidy because it will affect the poor. We provided data and statistics to show that, the disproportionate beneficiaries of this subsidy are the rich. For instance, many people don't know, but 60% of Nigeria's gasoline consumption is attributable to 4 states of the Federation. And these 4 states are the most affluent and the richest subnationals: Lagos, Rivers, FCT, Abuja, I think, and one other state I don't remember now. But these 3 account for about 60%. So essentially, this is where the richest Nigerians live. And they are the beneficiaries of this subsidy. What affects the common man is the transportation of goods across the country, which mostly use diesel, which is not subsidized. So petrol subsidy benefits the rich much, much more than the poor. And past studies have shown that anytime you increase the price of gasoline, there is a slight hike in transport prices and even consumer goods. But these prices go back within 3 months, when the forces of demand and supply and reduced demand compel the traders to go back and adjust the prices, because they see that, it's not making sense. And the contribution of transportation costs, the PMS, in the prices of these products or service is so minimal that it is not worth it. So we convinced the president. At that time, we're approaching 2 trillion. We convinced the president. He agreed that, look, this has to go, and so on. So by the time the petroleum industry bill was passed into law, it was embedded there. It's in the law. Actually, what we are doing now, allowing subsidy, is in violation of that law. And the president agreed. But Then what happened? He changed his mind. He didn't change his mind because of new facts. He didn't change his mind because of new information. It was, again, the influence of people that we have now found were disproportionate beneficiaries of the subsidy regime. Now, this year, we're talking of spending possibly 6 trillion on subsidy. 6 trillion is 2 to 3 times the annual budget of this country for education, for federal highways, for health, for everything that is important and that matters. It simply does not make any sense to continue, but it's still there. It is against the law. It is against the provision of PIA, and so on. And it is shortchanging states and local governments, and bringing many states to close to distress. You know, and this is not a decision that the states have taken. We have not agreed that our resources should be used to fund subsidy, but it is being done unilaterally, and is painful. But we just don't understand why you have that kind of decisions and actions coming out of the villa. Of course, the second one is the more recent decision about currency redesign, which is really currency recoloring in my view, because the currency was not redesigned in any way. It's the same 1,000 naira note. It's just now its color is different. Okay. Now, the logic behind the currency redesign, which was sold to the president, or the apparent logic, is that, you know, there are many Nigerians, politicians, governors, ministers that have stashes of billions of naira cash in their homes, and there is a need for them to bring it out. 2 or 3 people had this idea, and knowing that the president in his first outing did something like that, you know, sold a dummy to him, essentially saying, you know, let's change the color of the currency, let's do it in a very short time, then we'll catch them out. Either they bring out the money and be subject to EFCC investigation to explain how they got the money, or they lose it completely. We reduce the money supply, we'll do this, we'll do, you know. Some even went as far as giving the president illogical economic arguments that it will reduce inflation, it will make the exchange rate come down, which anybody that has done economics 101 knows is not true. And of course, since it was done, we have seen the naira move to 700, the dollar move to 700, even 900 at a point. And now, what the policy has amounted to is actually currency confiscation. You know, essentially what the government has done through the central bank is to confiscate the wealth of Nigerians, okay, whether legitimate or illegitimate, confiscate, put in the bank, and then not give them back their money.
Absolutely.
Okay? Because how can the central bank claim that they have withdrawn 2.7 trillion naira from circulation, yet they have printed currency only up to 300 billion? That means for every 9 naira they withdrew, they only printed 1 naira. How are they going to give back people their money? You know, they have no right to do that under the Central Bank of Nigeria Act. They have no right to do that under the Bills of Exchange Act. It is totally illegal. If you take 1 naira from a person, you should give him 1 naira. Okay? You can't force that person to open a bank account. You're violating his rights. If he wants to open a bank account, it should be as a result of advocacy and convincing him of the benefits of opening a bank account. You cannot take people's money and refuse to pay them back what they have deposited, or be paying them fractions. It is violation of the law. Okay? The second aspect of it is to say that legal tender must end by so-so time. Okay? It is only the president that can determine when currency ceases to be legal tender. And the law requires him to give reasonable time to do that. Now, Is a few weeks or a few months reasonable time? We don't think so. And this is why from day one, when the policy was announced, we as governors were taken by surprise, but we said it's a good policy. Ideally, we should have a cashless society. You know, it plugs leakages, corruption, and so on. We support it. But we do not believe it can be done within this short time frame. At that time, we did not even know that the mint has no capacity to print more than 1 trillion naira in a year. If they work flat out for 1 year, they can only print the equivalent of 1 trillion if they are printing high denomination notes like 1,000 and 500, okay? We didn't know that, but we just knew that the time was too tight for this to happen because we're on the ground. We know how many bank branches are in our states. We know local governments in our states that have no bank branch at all. Okay, and some of these local governments are the size of some states in Nigeria. Because in Borno State, for instance, the governor reported that only 2 local governments out of 27 have bank branches. Now, and you know, Borno is huge. Borno State is, I don't know, 6 times the size of the 5 states of the southeast. Borno State. So one local government in Borno State is bigger than some states. And you want everyone in that state, okay, the entire Borno State, everybody with money should all come to Maiduguri to change his money. The risks are they will be transporting cash across time. They will be transporting cash across distances, risks, and so on and so forth. So it did not just make sense. We needed more time. We needed a clearer logistic arrangements. For instance, if the central bank had come with a plan to say, look, for the local governments where there are no branches, our bullion vans will go to the markets, to the community leaders' houses, let people queue up, bring their old notes, we exchange them with new notes. Would have been happy as state governors to support that. But they didn't. They didn't even talk to us. And they couldn't because they knew they did not have the currency to give back to people anyway. So it was very, very clear that the policy was clothed with the intention of reducing money laundering and so on and so forth. But the actual agenda is to take people's money, refuse to give them, bring trade and commerce and exchange to a halt, and make it impossible for the elections to take place. Or ignite protests so that the entire democratic structure will collapse, or, you know, lead to an end-SARS-like uprising that will invite maybe the military to take over. These were the scenarios. And when we first heard of some of these scenarios back in September, October 2022, we laughed and said it's impossible. Nigeria? But it is very clear that that was the intention. Till today, the central bank, no bank in Nigeria, you know, can give you, if you go to the central bank with 100,000 naira cash in old notes and give, no bank in Nigeria will give you your 100,000 naira back. So it is not about catching the corrupt people and so on. It is really about impoverishing the people on the lower middle class and the middle class. Because you suddenly make them cashless. They can't buy food, they can't buy this, they can't buy that. They say, okay, transfer. All right, fine. Is the telecoms infrastructure able to take 3, 4 times, 11 times the level of transactions? Only 9% of Nigerians, according to the IMF, use digital platforms for monetary transactions. So this is why the telecoms infrastructure can handle it. But when you say everyone in Nigeria should use it, you should anticipate an 11-fold increase in the transactions. Have you sat with the telecoms operators and the NCC and the Ministry of Digital Economy to confirm that we have the infrastructure to do that? No. Why not? We don't care. We want the system to collapse. So these are some of these things. Now, when we go to the president and we present these facts, and these facts are not controverted because you don't have any contrary facts. Some of the members of the Nigerian Governors Forum were governors of central bank like Chukuma Soludo. He knows the capacity of the mint. He knows how the CBN works. And he says, look, and he drafted, it was under his watch that the CBN Act of today was drafted and passed. I was a member of cabinet. I was a member of cabinet and economic team when we did that. We know the intention. We know why we had those provisions. And they are not being complied with. They are not being observed. They are observed in the breach. You have to conclude that there is something going on. And, the first time we met the president as APC governors and presented some of the facts, he was surprised. He said, I'll look into this. We still have 1 week. I'll look into this. I'll resolve it. And we were all optimistic. By the time we went back, or our representatives went back, everything had changed without any change in facts or controverting any of the evidence that we have put forward. So, it is very clear that there is a hidden agenda. How evil or how dark that agenda is, only God knows. We can only speculate and put that side by side with some of the rumors we've had months ago, 3, 4, 5 months ago. So this is it. It's quite disturbing for us, and we just have to remain vigilant. I think every Nigerian should remain vigilant, and we hope that this ends well. And what I mean by end well is we have elections. There is no violence before, during, and after the elections, because that's what they want. People should not go on street protests, and people should know, and this is a very important point for Nigerians to know. Nigerians should know that even in 100 years, if you bring out the old notes and go to the Central Bank of Nigeria is duty bound to redeem your notes at value.
That's what the law says.
That's what the Bills of Exchange Act and the Central Bank Act says. The issue of a currency is a promise by the sovereign that anytime you produce it, I will redeem. Now, once it is declared no longer legal tender, you can't go to a market and use it. You can't even take it to a commercial bank and get value. But if you take it to the central bank, it must give you value. So what I've told the citizens of Kaduna State is, don't worry.
Okay.
Keep your old notes. Keep using them. If this deadline expires and they insist on it, we as Kaduna State government will collect your notes from your villages, we'll have records, we'll collect the value of your old notes, we will transport those notes to the central bank in Kaduna because they have only one branch in every state, and we will insist on redeeming those notes on face value as required by law, and we'll ensure that you get back your money. So don't panic, don't discount your notes, don't be selling your old notes for 80% of new notes. Keep transacting. I made that very clear, and I'm going to address the people of Kaduna State in both English and vernacular and Hausa and tell them, keep your notes. Nothing you will not lose. It will be a matter of time. It's something that I think as government of the state will work with the local governments, will work with councillors, will work with traditional rulers to ensure that nobody loses his hard-earned wealth from this policy.
Very bold statement you've made. I think I'm going to shoot 3 questions at you at once. First is, So first is, you've talked about people within the president's circle. Who are these people? Because then we can't keep talking about people in abstracts and we don't know who they are. Then we're unable to.
Most Nigerians know who they are. I've been asked this question several times in my interactions with the media. To me, knowing who they are, naming them, and shaming them is not as important as defeating them. And we can all unite as Nigerians and defeat them by ensuring that, one, we don't have any violent protests from now until the elections and after, because that's what they want. That's what they're engineering. It's a design. Second, we ensure that whatever cooperation we need to give, we give to INEC, the security agencies, to ensure that we have elections as scheduled. Okay? Third, whoever wins the elections, the political class should have the courage to concede so that we move on, okay, as we had in 2015 and also in 2019 in some states. All right? Fourth, we have a smooth transition. Today we have 108 days to go. Okay? Let's do that. Get out of the way. Hand over to another administration. Any policy corrections, any course corrections will be implemented by that administration. But let us not, allow these people to create an impossible situation so that we protest, so that we have answers too, so that elections are postponed, and the interim national government that they want, in which they will continue to exercise power from behind the scenes, will result. That's my appeal. I have no problem naming them. I'm not afraid of anybody. But for me, naming them is giving them traction. They are nothing. They are not capable of winning elections. They lack any electoral or political legitimacy. They can only hide behind the likes of President Buhari, to achieve their objectives. But on their own, they cannot come and do any of this. So there is no need to focus on them. What we need to focus on is defeating them. And defeating them means having elections and having support for whoever wins, and praying always for the Almighty God to choose for Nigeria who is best to take us out of the situation that we're in. For me, that's more important.
I just want to build a little bit on this. And the video that's reported you as speaking to citizens of Kaduna has generated a narrative suggesting indeed that in the spectrum of acts of treason, that you come a little bit close to being treasonous.
Well, look, there is nothing treasonable about that. All we are saying is that a policy that violates the law, that violates the rights of Nigerians, is illegitimate. And everything I have said, every scenario that I have painted is in compliance with existing laws. Okay? The Bill of Exchange Act, which has been in our books from colonial times, the Central Bank Act, all make these points that I have made. Okay? Now, is it for a subnational governor to make that commitment? No. When the system is working. But it is not. And the people of Kaduna State elected me to protect their lives and their property. Their money is part of their property. And I have to inform them that they will not lose their money because of this policy. Because the law says even after 100 years, they can bring out those old notes and go to the central bank and they will be redeemed. But can an individual travel from one part of Kaduna State to the central bank just to change 5,000 naira? Is it economic? No. This is where the state comes in. When I was making the commitment, I went with the governorship candidate of Kaduna State, because this is not a process that can be done in 1 year. It can take 4 years. All right? But I said, this is our candidate. This is the person that is likely to win the elections. And I'm coming with him so that jointly we make this commitment. I will honor it for the next 100 and something days that I have in office. But he is here also to tell you that he will honor it when he becomes governor by the grace of God. And remember, our governorship candidate is also the chairman of the Senate Committee on Banking and Currency. And he knows these laws like the back of his hand. And he knows that what I'm saying is completely in compliance with the law. And I'm a state governor. I have full immunity from anything. Even if people claim that what I say is treasonable, they can't do anything to me until after May 29th. And by then, another governor would have taken over, would have saved the people of Kaduna State, and then I'll be ready to be tried for treason. If that is treason, if saving people's wealth, saving their money is treason, I am ready for that.
There's a sense in which, there's a question of leadership in all the comments you've made about the cabal. I like to use the word cabal now. Influences.
I call them elements. Cabal is giving them too much honor. I call them fifth columnists or some elements in the villa. Don't honor them with one single English words that confer some kind of seriousness.
So in the words of Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna, there's a sense in which there's a question of leadership when you talk about some elements in the presidency influencing the decisions of the president, even after you have done consultations with him and he says he would fix it, and then there's a turnaround, the opposite happens. There is a big question of leadership. This appears as though the president is unable to take decisive steps on how to win Nigeria off the current terrible state. Is that the case?
Look, I don't like passing judgment, and let me correct your question, because it's not what I said. I said that we agree on something, and nothing happens. Sometimes it's not the opposite happening. Okay, nothing happens. The agreed decision is not implemented. Most of the time, that's the issue. It's not that the exact opposite happens. So let me get that accurately stated. Secondly, I've never been president. Okay, I've only been governor. Okay, and I've been a cabinet minister. I've had the privilege of working with several presidents, so I have a fair understanding about the intrigues and politics of the palace. Okay. I don't want to attribute it to indecision because I do not have all the information that the president has. Maybe he has information that compelled him to change his mind. But I am a state governor and I have advisors, I have commissioners. When we take a decision jointly in council and we stand by it, it's part of the collective responsibility of cabinet governors. If I have to change that decision, okay, courtesy demands that I bring it back to the same people and give them reasons, new information, why we have to change our decision or why I am overriding them. Because as governor, I can override my commissioners. Commissioners are just advisory, just as ministers are advisory to the president. Ultimately, the call is yours as governor or president. But when I have to change a decision that we've taken, even when it is informal, even a small circle of my advisors, when we take a position and then something compels me as governor to change my decision, I call them back. I say, guys, this is what we decided. But based on these, and these reasons, I think we should reconsider. And then we change our decision. Or sometimes I will tell them there are things that I know because I get some security reports that they cannot read. There are things that I know that I can't tell you, but we have to change this decision. It's just courtesy. Okay? We don't get that. We just see a decision that has been agreed not implemented or something. I don't want to judge and characterize it as indecision or anything like that because I have not been up there in the villa. But I can only give my experience as governor of Kaduna State and as minister of FCT. That's quite limited experience in governance. But that's all. I don't like passing judgment unless I have all the facts and the context, and I don't in this case. I don't know why it is happening this way. I mean, look, I've worked very closely with President Buhari in our opposition days. I know him very well, and what is happening is not what I thought I knew about him. That's all I can say. But I don't have all the information that he has, so I can't judge it. I can't judge or give you any definitive response.
I wonder if you want to give a sense to the claim out there that the president is a little bit lukewarm to the candidate of the party. Is it truly supportive? One gets, the narrative is that the mixed signals are too palpable.
Look, Dapo, there are no mixed signals. There are some things I can say about President Buhari that I am sure.
Yeah.
There are some that I can say maybe. There are some that I can say impossible, okay? And I know how many years of efforts, he and some of us put in to get this handshake with the ACN, because we started as CPC ACN before the other parties joined. And President Buhari considers the APC like a child that he conceived and held in pregnancy for 18 months, not 9 months, 18, and gave birth to. He will never, I'm ready to stake my neck and my life. President Buhari will never work against the APC, will never work against the candidate of the APC, even if that candidate is the devil himself. He is a party man, through and through. He's an establishment person, he's a party man. So anybody that says the president doesn't support Asiwaju is completely wrong. That I can be sure of, all right? Now, what's happening is that there are people around the president that had their presidential candidates. Okay, they had 2 aspirants that they preferred to succeed Buhari. It was Emefiele from the south and Senator Ahmed Lawan from the north. Okay, and they got neither. Okay, and immediately after the primaries, they started this outreach to people in the PDP, even meeting the presidential candidate and telling him that, we support you. We support you. And some of them are close enough to the president for people to conclude that they are speaking on behalf of the president. And that's the modus operandi of the elements, okay? Dropping the president's name and saying that, the president said, or this or that. But I am quite certain that the president will never work against his party. He will never work against his party's candidate. And of course, others may go and say this. And this is why when the whole thing began to make the rounds, you can see now the president has been going to every campaign stop. And his message has been consistent. Asiwaju is the best. Asiwaju is my Khalifa, my successor. We are here to campaign for him, and he will win through and through. He used strong words like that, which very unlike him. But to make that point and to also shame these people that have been going around pretending or dropping words to the effect that the president has any issue. The president is fully and totally behind us. I can give other details, but they are not needed. You have to wait for my book to get that.
Okay. And we know that you really have, we jumped on you, and time is an issue here, but we need to quickly plug in 1 or 2 things. So this is your last term, obviously. What's next for you? Are you coming in as a minister or something?
I was minister 20 years ago. I was privileged to be the minister of FCT 20 years ago, and Director General of BPE 4 years earlier than that. And I'm 63. I'll be 63 a week from today. And quite frankly, I think that Nigeria has such a pool of talented young people that can do whatever job that may be offered to me. And I have a pool of these young people, many that I have worked with, many that I have mentored over the years. And I have told Asiwaju several times there is hardly any assignment that you will offer me that I cannot get you a better, younger person. Of course, he doesn't agree with that. It's an ongoing discussion. But it's a moot point because the election is not yet won. My preference, by the grace of God, is, 107 or 8 days from now, we hand over and I take a break, complete my PhD. I've been pursuing a PhD in governance and public policy at the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands. In fact, I'm supposed to be in the university now. This is the research week, but I couldn't make it because of the situation of the country. I got security advisory that I have to be in Kaduna in case of protests and so on. So I had to write the university to cancel. So I hope I will spend the next 1 year after I leave office to tidy up the PhD because I've already started field work. So I'm at the very last stages. Then I'll write a book of my experiences in governing Kaduna. And then I will decide what next. I have very young children. You can see them playing. And they have not had the benefit of my time in the last 8 to 10 years. I would like to remedy that. Of course, I would like our party to succeed, and I will be around and be available to support Asiwaju Bola Tinubu to be a very, very successful and effective president in any way that I can, but preferably as an outside counselor who can tell him what others cannot tell him. I tried to do that with President Buhari because I wasn't at the federal level, but I was in the state level, and I always went to see him whenever I felt something was going off tangent. I would like to continue to play that role because, the scarcest commodity that available to a leader is the truth. Someone that will come to you and say, look, this is what's going on. You may not know, but look into this, look at these options. And there are very few people that are able to do that. I am blessed to be one of those that, can say my mind to anyone, anytime. And I think that's one of the biggest values I can add. I also know people. I have a national network of very smart people across all generations. So whatever we're looking for in terms of talent, I will be able to contribute. And Asiwaju, of course, is a master of hunting for talent. So I am optimistic that things are going to turn around for the better. But as I said, these are my plans. But man proposes and God disposes. But we'll see how it goes.
Then there's a Southern Kaduna question, which, it's been on the hearts and the lips of a lot of people. And one question there is to ask, has your government, the government of Kaduna State, of course, resigned to fate or left that part of the country to these unscrupulous elements to continue to torment and haunt the people who live in those areas?
You see, one of the biggest pieces of misinformation in the Nigerian media is about Southern Kaduna. First, even the way you framed your question suggests that it is only in Southern Kaduna that you have kidnapping and banditry. No. In fact, Southern Kaduna is ranked number 2 in that. It is Central Kaduna, Birnungwari, Chukun, Giwa, that have the highest cases of killings and kidnapping, but they don't make the news. They don't make the news because it is essentially Muslims killing Muslims. And even if we issue a statement, the media won't pick it. But in Southern Kaduna, there are cases of Muslims killing Christians or Christians killing Muslims. That is more sexy for the media. That's why even you asking the wrong question. We started something that has put a light to that, because we started publishing security briefings every 3 months of incidences from kidnapping to murder to, you know, local government by local government, senatorial district by senatorial district. And that's when people realized that Southern Kaduna is perhaps was at one time the safest senatorial district in Kaduna State, because most of the kidnapping, cattle rustling, and banditry was taking place in the northern senatorial district and the central. It only moved to southern Kaduna recently. The problem in southern Kaduna is not that. The problem in southern Kaduna is ethnic and religious bigotry, and it has existed for 40 years. All right? And we have tried to manage it. I think we've been the most successful government in managing it, in the sense that in the last 8 years, there has not been a single ethno-religious crisis in Kaduna State that has enveloped the entire state. If you check the records, you see that in 1987, in 1992, in 1999, in the year 2000, in 2001, there were ethno-religious crises that covered the entire state. And it started from southern Kaduna. But usually when the killings start in southern Kaduna and corpses of Muslims or Hausas are being brought for burial, retaliation starts in other parts of the state. So it covers the entire state. Since we came into office, there has never been a time when we've had a communal clash that has extended beyond 1 or 2 local governments. We've always contained it. And for the first time, we have arrested people and we are prosecuting them. Before, nobody ever got prosecuted. The one that got prosecuted, like Zamani Lekot in 1992, who led an uprising that led to the death of about 3,000 people, was sentenced to hang, and Babangida gave him pardon. And that has been going on. It's a 40-year problem, because the first crisis was in Kasuwa Magani in 1981. It's 42 years. But we have been the most successful in terms of managing it. And we are publishing a book very soon on the history of this ethno-religious crisis in Kaduna State, which draws on the history, the investigatory commissions, the white papers, and will name names of those involved that never got prosecuted. They're still working free. And that is one of the problems. But when we came in and you know, we increased the security footprint in southern Kaduna, we had a military base there for the first time in history. And remember, southern Kaduna people have been in the military, strong in the military, but they made sure, the senior people made sure that there was no military base, so that when the killings start, the nearest military formation is too far away to do anything. We brought one there, and since then, silence. We got 2 mobile police squadrons. We bought barracks for them. The state government bought the barracks, you know, to improve the security there. So now, if there is any clash within an hour or 2, the security agencies are there. That's why there have been silence there. But they still try to represent the banditry in ethno-religious terms, which is completely wrong, because banditry is something that is an economic venture. You know, they kidnap anyone that they think they can get money from, but you know, the way it is reported is wrong. Southern Kaduna is safer now, is quieter, is more developed than ever, because we are the first government that has really invested in infrastructure in southern Kaduna. We have created Kafancha as a metropolitan authority. We have appointed an administrator. If you go to Kafancha and you haven't been there in a few years, you will not recognize the city center because of the roads network. We have invested a lot. They don't vote for us because they vote along religious lines and they think APC is a Muslim party, that's fine. But once the elections are over, it is our duty to make sure that every part of the state is developed. And Southern Kaduna is unique in its endowment, you know, the minerals, agriculture, ginger. 85% of Nigeria's ginger comes from 3 local governments in Southern Kaduna. We have, there was a ginger processing plant that has been moribund. We've privatized it, and we are, the ginger value chain is being revived strongly. We have done a lot, but there is an older generation of Southern Kaduna people who think in a particular way. But by the grace of God, you know, biology will take care of them. The younger generation think completely different. And even as a party, now we are making progress in Southern Kaduna. We had free and fair local government elections where we won in local governments that have been PDP strongholds, because they can see that, you know, we don't discriminate in projects and investments and employment opportunities and so on and so forth. So, you know, for me, the Southern Kaduna problem can only be solved when people that don't understand it stop commenting on it, because many people don't understand it. But we do. I've lived there. I've gone to school with the Southern Kaduna people. I know what the issue is, and I think we've managed it the best way we can. And I'm sure the next governor will go even further. But when we publish our book on the history of ethno-religious crisis in Kaduna State, I urge you to read it, because I urge everyone to read it, because then you can understand what the issues are and be able to have informed commentary on the matter. That's the only way to be helpful.
So our last question, I would say, basically just a softball for you in this regard. Your candidates, with the headwinds you face, the mood of the nation is a little bit against the party in a way.
Yeah.
Do you think that both in terms of the candidate and the party, what are the chances? Are you as optimistic or as nervous as should be?
Look, my nature is when you are facing an election, you must be paranoid. You must be continuously nervous until you are declared the winner. Okay, but having said that, let me say that the last poll we did in January, we are 10 points ahead of the other political parties.
Instead of the rush of polls coming out defeating you.
No. Those polls, I have often said, you know, polls can be understood only within the context of the sample and the methodology.
Yep.
Okay, you can skew your sample to get the results you want. You can choose a methodology to give you the results you want. This is what these polls are doing. They all start with the answer that, you know, Peter Obi must win, and then they skew the sample. I'll give you an example. Bloomberg did a poll. What was the poll? Telephone poll. They didn't talk to actual human beings face to face. They phoned people using the INEC voters register. Guess what? Only 31% of 95 million on the INEC voters register have their phone numbers. So you've already started with a restricted sample. Number two, out of that 31%, you are talking only to those that have smartphones. So you've already stratified your sample to a particular demographic and economic class. So you'll get the answers that you want. The ANAP poll, slightly better, but again, telephone. All the other polls, we've looked at them, they are not realistic. In my state, you know, for instance, my brother Charles Soludo became governor of Anambra State with 300,000 votes. Okay? In the last election, in one local government, Zaria local government, I got 150,000 votes. All right? So one local government gave me half the votes that Governor Soludo got to be governor. So the states are not equal. So if you say Peter Obi is winning Anambra, Zaria local government and Kaduna North alone can wipe out his votes because of the sheer size of the votes that are there. So there are many ways by tweaking on sampling, by tweaking on methodology, you can lie with statistics. But I like data analytics, a hobby of mine. And when I was at the Kennedy School as a graduate student, I was even a teaching assistant in statistics. So I understand this thing. I can take each of these polls and deconstruct them for you and show that they started with an answer and worked as the questions. But the poll that we did has a larger sample, and we are 10 points ahead. Our only concern is 25% in at least 30 states. That's our target.
That is?
Yes. Wow. Okay? The constitutional requirement is 24 states.
Oh, it's 24, yeah.
It's 24 states plus FCT.
Okay,
all right?
25.
But we are targeting 30.
Okay.
All right? The last poll we did, we are not at 30, but we are working around the clock. We know, for us, the purpose of polls is not to celebrate and say, I have won. The purpose of polls is to point out to us where we are weak so that we can take proactive steps to cover the weakness. And that's what we've been doing. And we are expecting another poll. They have been on the field for the past 2 weeks. We are expecting another poll result next week, which is much larger sample size, about 40,000, that will tell us exactly where we are. But I'm optimistic that we're winning this election. I'm optimistic that Asiwaju is the next president of Nigeria by the grace of God. And all the noise and so on, will be settled on that election day. And luckily for everyone, the beavers works pretty well. The ability to write results, chase people with a gun and write the results you want is gone. And quite frankly, for us, the challenge now is for the election to take place first. And then, how do we reduce voter apathy in light of the frustration of having no cash in your pocket? How do you even get people to go to vote if by then they have no food? But the ruling by the Supreme Court has given us hope, and by next week, the Supreme Court will hear the substantive issue, and I know that they will give their ruling as soon as possible. So that uncertainty will be removed, and people will have cash to be able to transport themselves and buy some water on the day of the election and so on. Our concern now is voter turnout. But that's a problem.
Now students can go home for is that good news?
The federal government has decided to close all federal universities. Of course, state universities are not bound. I read that NUC has asked all universities should be closed down. NUC has no such power. It is in everybody's interest for the schools to close. As soon as we get back to Kaduna, I'm going to consult our Commissioner of Education and the heads of our tertiary institutions, and if they have no strong objection, like we're in the middle of exams or something, we'll also ask them to close so that students go and have the opportunity to vote. But another issue is that many of the students registered registered where they are studying. So maybe closing the universities may not be the best solution, perhaps. But perhaps when you close, they can still stay back in school. If you have that flexibility, then students will vote, because students are the second largest, I think, or the first largest block of voters in the election. So yeah, it's very important for them to be given equal opportunity to vote, and we welcome that.
You okay with the health of the candidate? Is he as
Look, I am not his doctor. I've not seen any medical report. But I'm 63, okay? And I know this for sure. Any person above this age of 60 probably has one health issue or another, okay? The luckiest amongst those above 60 are people like me that have no sugar problem, no high BP, you know? I don't get high BP. I give people high BP. I don't get it. But I have a cholesterol problem. I take statins every day, and I've been taking that since I was 40. So, every person above the age of 60 has one health issue or another. And I don't like judging or passing judgment on the health of a person, because experience has shown me that that can be a curse on you. I still remember the funeral committee of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, when he was rumored to be dead. At BK Okafo and Mbadiwe constituted themselves into a funeral committee. Then it was found that Azikiwe was not dead after all, and
the gentleman,
all of them died before him.
Yeah.
So it is. I urge caution in people passing judgment about health, about the health of people, particularly those above the age of 60, because you never know who will go first. That's one. Secondly, President Buhari was ill in 2017, and he was quite ill, I can tell you. But look at him now. All right, he looks healthier than he looks healthier than some 50-year-olds. So, when you are not a doctor and you don't have the medical history of a person and you try to pass judgment based on just looking at him, you may get it wrong. Does Asiwaju have health challenges? Yeah, he was in hospital. He had knee replacement, for instance. I know that for sure. But does that mean he cannot shoulder the responsibility of the office? I don't think so. We have gone campaigning with him. Back to back, from one state to another. I don't do 2 days of continuous campaigning. When I do one day, I rest. Okay? He doesn't. He manages to wake up. I was with him till 3 a.m. this morning, telling him, as soon as you go and sleep, you have to be in Sokoto. And he was still talking about other things. And he was in Sokoto. I didn't wake up until, I don't know. I don't want to say it on TV. But, what I'm saying is, I don't know Asiwaju very well for a long time. Okay, we're not very close. We only started working together closely after he won the primaries, because as far as I'm concerned, he's the candidate of my party, and I will work for him. I will work for him. I will make sure I give everything to get him elected, because he's the candidate of my party. It's, for me, public service is God, country, party. Okay, in that order. So, but when we brought him to Kaduna to face the Arewa groups, we looked at his speech. We tried to shorten it, because we were not sure. Well, it was the first time I was seeing him in public. We were not sure. The man stood there and gave a speech for 1.5 hours, and then took questions. So how can you say somebody that can stand for 1.5 hours and give a speech, has something? And before then, we had gone around. We had gone to see the tomb of Sir Ahmadu Bello, and we've done some activities. And since then, he has been to Kaduna twice. And my sense is that, he's old. He's 70, all right? Yeah, he may have health challenges. Everyone above the age of 60 has. But his mental faculties are intact. When he doesn't rest, when he doesn't have enough sleep like everyone else, he may make 1 or 2 mistakes. But he's quite sharp, and he's also street smart. He gets things quickly. And I think he will be a decent president. So, I don't have, and I don't want to comment on his health at all, because I am not in a position to determine what ailment or so he has. But I think can he do the job? Yeah, I think he can. How do I know this? I've worked with 3 presidents, and I'm qualified to pass that judgment. That's what I think.
So thank you so very much for the generosity of your time, for barging in on you, and for giving a very good interview.
You're qualified to ambush me anytime, Dapo.
I do know, sir.
So you're welcome.
Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you.
I'm wishing you all the best now and beyond. And I know that,
Thank you.
You'll always be there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.